Hello and welcome to Swaay.Health, where we bring you the latest insights and interesting stories from the brightest minds in healthcare marketing. I'm Colin Hung, and I'm super excited today to welcome a good friend, Christine Slocumb, to the program. Christine recently published a new book called Stop Starvation Marketing. I'm excited to dive into that book with her. I want to find out what she means by starvation marketing, and I want to ask her about all the amazing power moves that she has throughout the book and all the interesting stories that she tells, particularly around how to get a marketing budget approved and approval from those higher ups for your marketing programs that you want to run. So I hope you enjoyed this interview. Christine, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Colin. So happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's always fun to have a friend on the program. I'm looking forward to talking to you about this amazing book that you've put out. But it's fantastic to have you here. Hope you've been well.
Oh, I've been very well, Colin. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk about the book and catch up.
Yeah, so let's jump right in. So we have this book, and thank you very much for the copy. I've enjoyed it. Your team gave it to me when they were here for the Sway Toronto event, so it's just fantastic. And the book is called Stop Starvation Marketing. So I got to ask right off the top, what is starvation marketing?
Starvation marketing is what I see a lot of healthcare tech and life sciences companies do. And that is putting marketing at the bottom of a priority list, waiting 6 months to even think about marketing before they're going to launch. It's at the bottom of the budget barrel. So that's why I called it starvation marketing, because I saw that happening so often. And those are the companies that were really struggling versus the ones that prioritized their marketing and had, fat marketing, tended to be the ones on the success side of the curve.
And first of all, you're speaking right into my heart because that is so true in the marketplace, and an unfortunate consequence. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that marketing doesn't get the love or doesn't get the budgeting that maybe it should?
Well, a lot of B2B companies, especially in the health tech and life science area, are founded by PhDs or developers, programmers, business folks coming out of, investment bank, even, and they have no exposure to marketing. It's this foreign entity that creates beautiful design booths, but they really don't, they don't read marketing books. I created this book because I was like, if you're a VP of marketing, you can hand this to your CEO and say, like, this is why we need great marketing. And I had read a couple of other books, Lantana Kanat's No Forms, No Spam, No Cold Calls, and others that were very specific to like ABM and trying to get the point across. But I didn't see a book in the space that really addressed frustrations that like VPs of marketing had in trying to get breakthrough to their CEO on why marketing is so important.
One of the themes that go through the book is that you basically are pointing out that marketing isn't just about making stuff pretty. It isn't about the external communication. It's also about bringing that market and bringing and being like you just said, the voice of the customer, and making sure that is brought inside as well. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that's actually one of marketing's functions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm starting to see some light bulbs go off on like market research and doing that early and really understanding, is there a market for this product before I go through all the hassle and toil and money spend in developing something, right? In healthcare, I think we see a lot of companies who have their heart in the right place, or, they may work with one health system who says, I have this issue, but they're not looking at it holistically and saying, is this just going to work for Kaiser, or is this going to work for everyone, out in the healthcare ecosystem? And marketing can really help establish that foundation and really determine if you have a market.
Now, I have to ask you this. I mean, throughout the book, you have a ton of stories and anecdotes from various folks. Was there one story that stood out more than the others for you? Is there one that kind of resonates with you?
Yeah, there's a couple actually, and they're more on the life sciences side, if that's okay if I can go in there.
Yeah,
But we had worked with one life science from very early stage. Like they were only about 1.5 million revenue, and PhD led, right? And the woman CEO was like, I know the lab. I know, my technology here, but I don't know a thing about marketing. And she was one of those that was starving the marketing, said, "Oh, I thought I would just put this stuff out on the web and people would buy my cells." Right. And she was like, "Oh, then I got a reality check, cold water slap in the face." And we started working with her really slow. And then we built it to the time when, she was having the most success right before getting acquired. The marketing budget was as big as the lab budget. And like I would even look at her budget and go, "Oh my gosh, Anne, I can't believe you're spending this much." But she's like, "I'm getting the ROI." She's like, "I'm getting like 6x on every dollar I spend with you guys." Right. So that was actually a light bulb moment for me too, looking at like, oh my gosh, we should really be pushing this more, pushing technology companies to start spending earlier on the right things, not silly marketing things, but on the right things that are going to show ROI, doing a lot more A/B testing. So, she was a small company and ended up being super successful, getting acquired by Charles River Labs, and retired off of that. So I love that story. And we've had like 3 or 4 recently where the owners came to us, founders came to us, I'm stalled, and then 3 years later, they're successfully acquired based on the success of campaigns. So that's really fulfilling to me.
So I have to ask this. What do you consider silly things that people spend money on too early in the health technology space?
There's like really expensive tchotchkes going out, to not a targeted audience. There's, you know, putting out the huge trade show booth without a lot of thought behind it. Could you just do a concierge suite to start? Or if you're going to do that big one, make sure that you're planning it for a year. You know this, right? You walk the shows all the time and you're like, you can tell the difference between the ones that just slap something together and they still paid for like a 40 by 40 double decker or something, right? And then the ones that maybe had a 10 by 10, but like they really planned it well for a year and caught your attention and got Colin to come over and talk to them, right? There's a difference between planning that. So that silly spend is the 40 by 40 double decker with, no planning. You put it together 3 months ahead of time.
Gotcha. No, and I totally agree with you. It's very easy to tell. Uh, First of all, when people haven't planned well, but second of all, it's very easy to tell when people don't have a purpose to their booth. There is messaging that's not cohesive. There obviously doesn't appear to be a plan because there's people just sort of standing around there. So after you go to enough shows, it is easy to tell.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, a lot of people do spend money on very expensive tchotchke that although it does have an impact, may not have the ROI that you are looking for. And yes, booths are horribly expensive now, and you better be sure.
That's just one. I've seen silly parties planned parties can be great. User group meetings can be awesome.
Mhm.
You guys at Sway run good ones on there where there's a lot of interaction. But if it's not planned well, or you don't have the right people, you don't have the right fannies in the seats, we like to say, right? Then you're just throwing money out, and I've just seen people also throw a whole bunch of marketing plans or campaigns out there without any thought or cohesion of how they integrate together. And if you do like Google ads poorly, you can spend a whole lot of junk money.
It's actually a nice segue into my next question. One of my favorite chapters of the book was your chapter around budgeting and actually how to sell the budget to the C-level and to your managers. And you had this really amazing graphic in there that kind of represented the budgeting process. Can you maybe describe that for our readers and our listeners what that graphic was
Yeah, folks
and
aren't, I don't know if they can see it on the screen, but it's on page 71 of my book if they have the book. And it was graciously allowed for me to use by a couple guys in the UK, Chris Branch among them, who are fabulous, like AI guys in design. But it's 3 graphics, and the marketing plan is depicted by a speedboat, like nice luxury speedboat. That's the plan. The budget is a canoe, and the expected ROI is a cruise ship. And that's what most marketers get in there at the 11th hour. We're going to launch, and oh my gosh, make it rain, make it rain, make it rain. Right. And, but make it rain, and I'm going to give you half an umbrella. Right, to do it in there. So we really have to have, as management teams need to have realistic expectations. Not everyone's going to have the super big budget. That's fine, but your expectations have to be in line with that budget. And good marketers should be able to tell you, like, for X, you're going to get Y. In the chapter, I go through lots of different scenarios. I also give data from multiple sources of what different types of companies, B2C, B2B, health, biotech, what they're spending as a percentage of their revenue, as a percentage of their overall budget. So the folks could look at that data and say, like, are we in this? I'll often bring those charts up on prospecting calls. And they'll say, oh my gosh, we're like 1%. And I'm like, look at your competition. They're like 5 to 10% of budget. It is marketing, and you're asking us to get you in front of them on SEO, on ads and stuff. It just doesn't make logical sense, right? You have to spend wisely to get the exposure on both the lead gen and awareness that you need.
So I like the part of the chapter where you do talk about making sure that in your budget you are showing very clearly ROI. Like, what am I going to get for every dollar that I put in? And obviously, what we're seeking is a multiple, right? I put $1 in, I get two, $5, $10 back out of that program. That would be the ideal. And that's helpful both for selling the budget and also for the marketers themselves, because then you can look across all your programs and go, oh, well, why are we spending this one where we've put in $1, we get $1 back? Like, that's maybe not a wise investment. But you also talk about how it's not just an ROI play for selling this to the executives. There's a lot of other elements like aligning it to the business objectives and those kinds of things. What are some of the tips that you would have for someone going through that budgeting process right now and maybe hitting a little bit of a brick wall with their CFO or CEO and them saying, I don't get this budget. There's no way I'm giving you this much. What advice do you have for someone in that situation?
Yeah, well, first, starting with a slate with the CFO and the head of sales, I would say, if you're in marketing, to figure out, do we even have the data, right? Garbage in, garbage out, right? And I find a lot of companies, sales and marketing still aren't talking to one another, Colin. It's still a problem, right? We can't trace first touch all the way through conversion. And unless you can do that, I tell people, leave your marketing, leave that company. Because, like, if you can't show that the marketing converts to sales, they're going to just keep hiring more salespeople, and you're going to be stuck with your bottom basement marketing budget, right? So first, getting with the C level and say, we need an architecture here where we can track every single incoming lead all the way through conversion or lost and reasons why. And then you'll have the data you need to have accountability. And don't be afraid to sign up for accountability. I see a lot of marketers who are like, I was design, I'm like kind of weak in data analytics. If you are, go hire it. Like, you're gonna need a data analytics person. And with AI coming on board, the things you can do in Chat GPT, our parent company Supreme just threw a whole bunch of data, of ad spend data that we had historically for years into AI model, large language models. And oh my gosh, like, the insights you can get from that, the ROI metrics you can ascertain, you can see what's working, what's not working super quickly. So convince the C level we need good data, and then go hire a data person right now if you don't have them on board, and then get in sync with them so that then you can show marketing does have an ROI, and you can quickly can campaigns that don't work and spend more on the ones that do.
I love what you said there. It is so critical to be able to tie the top of your funnel metrics to actual sales. And yet that is one of the hardest things to do, not just because sales and marketing perhaps don't get along, but it's just hard to do. Even with all the marketing technology snacks, it is very hard to truly do attribution correctly.
It is
And,
very,
and,
we
and
even see companies that have like Pardot and Salesforce. They're the same company, same platform now, and they're not talking. The systems aren't talking to each other correctly. So I think you're going to see a huge demand now with AI, and even without it, into folks that are expert in analytics. So where folks are out there, they've been laid off, I tell you, go study analytics. Like every company is going to be hiring a data person.
Christine, I got to ask this question about the creation of the book. I mean, this is our Sway.Health audience. I'm sure there are people in this audience who are maybe thinking about a book or maybe have in their heart one day wanting to do a book. Can you walk us through the process of how you created the book?
Sure, sure. So I had chapters on a Google Drive folder for years. And every time a client or prospect would ask me a question, I would say, "Ooh, that's good. I'm just gonna like write it down. I'm gonna write a chapter on that." Right. And so, but it was sitting there forever. And then I heard a podcast similar to this one, called Agency Management Institute. Drew McCullen, he's great. And he had a guest on there who was a editor publisher who said, "I specialize in writing books for agencies." And I said, I need to talk to this man because it's never going to get off my Google Drive unless I have someone who's giving me deadlines and gives me a formula. Like I had raw material, and I think a lot of people out there have raw material, but they're not sure how to package it all together. And Indie Publishing is my publisher, and they basically were fabulous in just giving me a template. And if you've read the book, you see that there's a template kind of for every chapter. It's a story, talk about the solution, then give power moves. So once you have a template, it's just like building a website and having a site architecture or a site map, right? If you have a site map for your book, then it goes very quickly in terms of filling out that content. So I encourage any folks who are really struggling or saying, "Oh, I have a great idea, but I don't know how to get this on paper," to reach out to a publisher or editor that specializes in agencies or health tech or anything in this field, and they'll be super helpful too.
I think a lot of people who haven't written a book, myself included, might be a little intimidated working with a publisher or an editor, because when I'm in my mind, I'm picturing an editor who's like going to cut your work down, in half and is going to be really mean and tell you to rewrite it 40 times. What's it really like working with a
Yeah,
publisher and
no,
editor?
no, 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 no. A good editor becomes your best friend, I like to say. So mine like came out here to Providence. We sat in a hotel lobby for like 3 hours, and he just said, "Chris, tell me about you. Tell me about your story. Tell me why this book is important, just like you asked. Why would your audience care?" And from that, it all flowed there. Right. So they're not sitting there going, like stopping. They're giving you deadlines. That's for sure. You got to get these 3 chapters by here, these 3 chapters, which is good. We all need that as authors. But they're also good at pushing you. Like I told you a story before we got on here, Helen, about like, hey, there's a story in every book and a named person and named company in every book. Well, that's a big task to go get legal sign off on that, but it makes the book so much better. And he pushed me on that. He was like, "Nope, Chris, you have to do this." I was like, "That's gonna take like 6 months." But I did it. And in the end, it's a better result. So the editor can push you kindly in those great directions where you should be.
Love it. And what has some of the feedback been from people who have read the book? I mean, online, you've done a lot of stuff on social media, you've done a lot of media now. What has the feedback been to the book?
Yeah, and there's going to be more coming in 24. So that's just been the soft launch. We're going to have the hard launch in first quarter. But it's been great. It's so gratifying when clients ask for more copies. We've had one recently. They're like, "I need one for everyone on my team." I've had old clients come back that were mentioned in here 20 years ago, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so fabulous. I'm so glad you put this down. You've told me this in the past, but now I can show it to people." And then, it's so gratifying to see people who you don't know put up a review on Amazon. I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." It's not just my friends buying the book. So yeah, but overall, I'm really gratified in that it's helping people. It's helping marketers really establish themselves in the C-suite, I'm a firm believer that every company needs a chief marketing officer once you're a certain level, right? If you have a chief sales officer, you should have a chief marketing officer. And this is coming from someone who's like a sales leader now, right? I want and I have a strong CMO like sitting next to me, because it's so, so important.
Christine, for anyone listening and watching this, what's the one thing you would want for them to take away from our conversation today?
Betting on the best tech only leads to a train wreck, right? If you're putting all your marbles into our technology is fabulous, our AI is amazing, and you forget about marketing until the last minute, you're gonna rue the day.
I love it. That is great. That is great. Now you shared a ton of great information with us today. You shared the book, obviously. Where can people go to get the book, and then where can people go to learn more about you?
Yes, the book Stop Starvation Marketing is on all the major online retailers. It's on Amazon and it's on Barnes and Noble. On Amazon, it's both Kindle and paperback version.
Amazing. And if someone had questions for you, how can they connect with you on social media?
Absolutely. They can find me on LinkedIn under Chris Slocumb, and I'm pretty easy to find either through Supreme Optimization or Clarity Quest Marketing.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for being on the program today. I really appreciate everything you've shared with us.
Thanks for the opportunity, Colin. It was great to speak with you.
Hey, I want to thank Christine for coming on the program today and talking about her wonderful book, Stop Starvation Marketing. We're going to put a link to the book down in the description. So if you don't have your copy, be sure to click there and get one. It is fantastic. I really appreciated the information that Chris shared, especially around how you have to tie attribution to the marketing leads in order to convince executives about the marketing budget that you want, and how you have to be very crisp and clear about the ROI that the program that you're proposing is going to have for the particular organization that you're working with. Without those two things, you're never going to get the budget and you're never going to get the approval from the higher ups for the programs you want to run. So definitely appreciated that advice from Christine. And hey, if you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, please like and subscribe. Also, head on over to Swaay.Health. That's Sway with two A's, .health. That's where you'll find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you on the next video.